The brutal Nevada sun scorched the cracked earth as a fragile chestnut foal lay motionless in the dirt, his ribs rising and falling with shallow, labored breaths. His coat, once glossy with youth, was now matted with dust and sweat. Just 20 feet away, a shadow stirred. An old gray wolf with a grizzled muzzle and battle-scarred face emerged from the sagebrush. The exhausted foal barely had strength to lift his head as the predator drew near. But then something miraculous happened. Instead of attacking, the wolf gently sniffed the foal's face, his amber eyes softening with something no scientist could explain. In this unforgiving wilderness, the rules were simple. The strong survive, the weak perish. Every creature knew this law except for one. The aging wolf, his silvered coat telling tales of 12 hard winters, stood over the helpless foal and made a choice that defied every instinct. With painstaking care, he began licking moisture onto the foal's parched lips, then dragged his weakened body toward a hidden water pocket beneath the rocks. The desert held its breath as predator became protector in a single, extraordinary moment. Wildlife biologist Sierra Cole gripped her steering wheel tightly as her truck bounced along the rutted backroads. The report had come in about an abandoned foal in this heat. She knew what that usually meant. But when her boots crunched on the gravel ridge overlooking the dry creek bed, her clipboard clattered to the ground. There, curled protectively around the emaciated Mustang, was a fully grown gray wolf. Not attacking, not feeding. The wolf was comforting him. Sierra's hands trembled as she reached for her camera, knowing she was witnessing something that would rewrite the textbooks. The foal's vision blurred as his tiny body finally gave out. Somewhere beyond the ringing in his ears, he could faintly hear his mother's distant whinny, too far now to save him. Just as darkness began to creep in, a warm presence blocked the scorching sun. The old wolf's breath stirred the foal's matted forelock as he carefully nudged the limp body. Then, with strength that belied his age, the wolf began pulling the foal toward a seep of rainwater hidden beneath the rocks. Each inch was a struggle, but the wolf persisted until the foal's nose touched life-giving water. This scarred warrior had survived everything the brutal Nevada wilderness could throw at him: droughts that cracked the earth, winters that starved entire packs, battles that left his muzzle crisscrossed with white lines. Now, in what should have been his final years, he faced one last choice as he stood over the dying foal. His cracked canine teeth could have ended the suffering quickly. His empty stomach growled for nourishment. But instead, the old wolf slowly lowered himself to the ground and pressed his warmth against the foal's shivering body, sheltering him through the freezing desert night. The storm had come suddenly, scattering the Mustang herd in all directions. Now, 3 days later, the lost foal stumbled blindly through the sagebrush, his hooves raw and bleeding. Dehydration twisted his gut with invisible knives. High above, turkey vultures circled patiently. Then movement. The foal's legs finally collapsed as a shadow fell across him. He braced for the inevitable, but instead of teeth, he felt a warm tongue gently grooming his matted neck. The wolf's golden eyes held no hunger, only a quiet understanding of what it meant to be alone in this merciless land. The foal's tongue swelled grotesquely in his parched mouth. His kidneys were beginning to fail. Each breath came in ragged, whistling gasps that sprayed flecks of pink foam. Death was coming, until the wolf appeared like a mirage in the heat waves. With deliberate care, the old predator dipped his muzzle into a rocky crevice where precious rainwater pooled. Then, walking unsteadily on arthritic legs, he carried mouthful after precious mouthful to the foal, spilling most of it but never giving up. Drip by life-giving drip, he nursed the foal back from the brink. Their excited yips cut through the twilight as the coyote pack closed in. 5 against 1 easy odds when the prey was already half dead. But as the lead coyote lunged, an explosion of gray fur sent the pack scattering. The old wolf, whom the biologists would later name Thorn, stood rigid over the foal, lips curled back from yellowed fangs in a silent snarl that spoke volumes. The message was clear. This foal was under his protection now. Not as prey, as family. Dr. Ruby Quintana, head veterinarian at the Mustang Rescue Center, stared at the infrared footage in stunned silence. The grainy images showed the wolf doing something unprecedented, not just tolerating the foal's presence, but actively caring for it. "Look here," she pointed with a trembling finger. "He's regurgitating water for him like a mother wolf would for her pups." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But wolves don't do this for other species. They just don't." Yet the evidence was undeniable. This wolf had chosen compassion over instinct. The foal's brown eyes, clouded with pain and confusion, locked onto the wolf's ancient golden gaze. In that silent exchange spanning just 3 heartbeats, something profound passed between them, a recognition deeper than species, older than instinct. The wolf dipped his grizzled muzzle in what looked like a bow. The foal blinked slowly in response. And in that moment, the desert's oldest rule was broken. Predator and prey were no more. There was only the wolf, and the life he refused to let go. The old wolf's stomach growled painfully as he stood over the helpless foal. 3 days without proper food had left him gaunt. Every instinct screamed to finish what the desert had started. But then, the foal whimpered, just a soft, broken sound that echoed the loneliness the wolf himself had known since losing his pack. With a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the mountains, he lay down beside the trembling creature, choosing companionship over survival. Somewhere beyond the Red Rock Canyons, the foal's mother called desperately for her lost baby. But the distance was too great. As the little Mustang's strength faded, a new guardian took his place. The wolf curled his body around the foal like living armor, his breath steady and warm against the foal's neck. When the night winds howled, he didn't flinch. When the temperature plummeted, he shared his heat. An unspoken promise passed between them. "No one dies alone tonight." Dr. Quintana's pen froze mid-sentence as she reviewed the footage. The wolf wasn't just tolerating the foal, he was actively parenting, grooming his coat, nudging him to drink, even positioning himself between the foal and potential threats. "This contradicts every documented wolf behavior," she murmured, watching as the predator gently carried food to the weakened Mustang. In her 30 years of wildlife medicine, she'd never seen anything like it. Some bonds, it seemed, transcended science. The desert's cruel irony, salvation came from the last creature anyone would expect. With meticulous care, the wolf lapped water from the rocky seep, then carried it dripping in his jaws to the foal. Most spilled onto the parched earth, but enough made it to the foal's cracked lips to matter. Again and again the wolf made the journey, his arthritic legs trembling with effort. No one had ever shown the foal such patience. No one had ever fought so hard to keep him alive. Moonlight painted the desert silver as the coyotes returned. 5 sets of eyes gleamed in the darkness, creeping closer to easy prey. But they hadn't counted on the wolf's resolve. With a roar that shook the canyon walls, he launched himself at the pack, old bones moving with sudden, terrifying power. Jaws snapped, fur flew. When dawn came, the wolf stood victorious over the foal, his own blood mixing with the coyotes in the sand. The message was clear. This life was worth fighting for. Sierra Cole had heard every tall tale the desert could offer, but nothing prepared her for the sight of the wolf curled protectively around the foal, his massive head resting gently on the Mustang's neck. Her breath caught as the wolf looked up, not with aggression, but with quiet understanding. In that moment, the hardened scientist felt tears welling. The desert had taught her many lessons, but this was a miracle. Mark's coffee cup shattered on the rocks as the wolf did the impossible. He picked up Sierra's canteen in his teeth and carried it to the foal. That's not," the field assistant stammered, wiping his glasses frantically. But the evidence was undeniable. Frame by frame, the camera captured what science said couldn't happen. A wild predator performing an act of pure compassion. Somewhere in Nevada, the rulebooks were burning. The foal's breathing grew shallower as midnight approached. Sierra knelt in the dirt, whispering words she hadn't spoken since childhood. Maybe it was the prayer. Maybe it was fate. But at that exact moment, the wolf rose stiffly and limped to a hidden creosote bush, returning with a mouthful of moisture-laden leaves. As he dropped them near the foal's nose, the first raindrops began to fall. The desert, it seemed, had chosen sides. The veterinary team froze as the grizzled wolf bared his teeth at their stretcher. "Easy, old man," Sierra murmured, showing empty hands. To everyone's shock, the wolf stepped aside, but followed them to the truck, his amber eyes never leaving the foal. When they tried to close the door, he planted himself in the way. The message was clear. Where the foal went, he would go. After 12 years alone, the wolf had found his purpose. Dr. Quintana's stethoscope slipped as the wolf pressed against the exam table, whining softly each time the foal cried out. "His cortisol levels are dropping when the wolf is near," she marveled, watching the monitors. The frail Mustang's heartbeat steadied the moment the predator rested his head on the table. Science had no explanation, but the truth was written plainly in the wolf's eyes. Some souls recognize each other across species, across reason, across time itself. The Mustang monument gates creaked open for the first time, welcoming its two most unlikely residents. Workers held their breath as the wolf padded through, his ears flicking toward the foal's nervous whinnies. Sierra knelt in the dust, whispering to them both, "You're safe now." What began as a rescue mission had become something sacred, a testament to the unbreakable bond between natural enemies turned family. Golden sunlight filtered through the cottonwoods as the pair settled into their new life. The wolf, now called Thorn for his protective nature, never let the foal named Canyon stray beyond nose touch. They ate together, slept curled together, even played together in the tall grass. Biologists scratched their heads while visitors wept openly. The desert's greatest lesson? Love speaks a language older than instinct. A child's laughter startled Canyon into bolting. Before anyone could react, Thorn was between them, not attacking, but trembling violently as small hands patted his scarred head. The once feral wolf endured the contact for his foal's sake, though every muscle screamed to flee. That night, Sierra found him compulsively licking his paws raw. "He's trying to wash away the human scent," she realized with aching clarity. Some sacrifices leave no visible scars. The sanctuary's other wolves initially shunned Thorn, until they saw him gently herding Canyon away from the fence. One by one, the pack began mirroring his behavior. A young female brought the foal gifts of chewed meat. The alpha male stood watch during his naps. What began as an anomaly became their new normal. Even in nature, it seems love begets love. News crews flocked to the sanctuary as Thorn's story circled the globe. Scientists debated interspecies empathy. Artists painted their likenesses. But the truest testament came at dawn each morning, when an old wolf and young Mustang raced along the fence line, manes and tails flying in perfect synchrony. Not predator and prey, not even friends. Something deeper, something without a name. A screech of brakes shattered the midnight peace. Thorn was on his feet before the first chain link rattle, his warning snarls waking Canyon. Shadows moved with practiced efficiency, dart guns raised, locks picked. By the time guards arrived, only paw prints and tire marks remained. Somewhere in the darkness, a wolf's howl rose in anguish. The thieves had taken more than a horse. They'd severed a soul-deep bond. Canyon's stall stood empty, his blankets still warm. Thorn paced relentlessly, sniffing every inch of the trampled ground. When he found the familiar scent, his reaction chilled the staff, a low, continuous whine unlike any wolf vocalization on record. It wasn't anger. It was grief. The same sound, Sierra realized with a start, that he'd made over his dead pack members years before. 3 miles away, Canyon thrashed in the thieves' trailer, his hooves striking metal in desperate rhythm. Then, an answering cry from the distant hills. The men laughed, dismissing it as coyotes. They didn't see the shadow detach itself from the junipers, didn't notice the amber eyes reflecting their headlights. By the time they recognized their mistake, it was too late. The wolf had their scent. Zane Crow checked his rearview mirror for the 10th time, unnerved by the silence. His partner suddenly gasped, "Jesus, it's following us." There, keeping pace with their speeding truck, was the massive gray wolf. Not chasing, hunting. When they skidded to a stop, the wolf vanished. That's when the screaming started from the trailer. Canyon wasn't just kicking anymore. He was answering. The crash site told the story. Shredded tires, a jackknifed trailer, and drag marks leading to the ravine. Sheriff's deputies found the thieves first, unharmed but babbling about a demon wolf. Then came the whinny from below. There, in the moonlight, stood Thorn with Canyon's lead rope clenched in his teeth. The wolf's muzzle dripped crimson, but the foal's coat was spotless. Some debts nature collects personally. Thorn's paws bled as he limped across the scorching desert, following the fading scent of diesel and fear. His ribs protruded from days without food, his tongue swollen with thirst. Yet each time he faltered, the memory of Canyon's terrified eyes drove him forward. A storm rolled in, washing away the trail, but Thorn had memorized the turns. Left at the Joshua tree, right at the dry riverbed. When his legs finally gave out beneath him, he lifted his muzzle and released a howl that carried for miles. Somewhere in the darkness, Canyon's ears pricked up. The wolf wasn't just tracking his friend, he was calling him home. Sheriff Hayes followed the gruesome signs with growing dread. A shredded flannel shirt snagged on catclaw, a boot print half filled with blood. And everywhere those massive wolf tracks, some running, some dragging. Then he reached the abandoned mine shaft. His flashlight beam shook as it illuminated the scene below. Thorn lay motionless at the bottom, one leg twisted at a sickening angle. Above him, barely visible in the shadows, Canyon stood guard. His hooves planted protectively beside the wolf's broken body. The foal's ribs showed through his coat, his nostrils flaring at the human scent. But he didn't flee, because some bonds are worth dying for. The rescue team's radios crackled with static as they lowered the stretcher. "Wolf first," Dr. Nguyen ordered. Thorn's chest barely rose, his gray fur matted with dirt and dried blood. But when they reached for Canyon, the Mustang reared up, his hooves striking air. It wasn't until Thorn whimpered that the foal relented, pressing his forehead to the wolf's as if transferring strength. The vet's hands trembled as she checked Thorn's pulse. "He's got maybe an hour," she whispered. Then Canyon did something no horse should know how to do. He nosed Thorn's limp paw onto the stretcher, his brown eyes pleading. "Save him." The operating table lights burned too bright. Thorn's heartbeat stuttered on the monitor as Dr. Nguyen worked frantically. "Internal bleeding, shattered femur. God, his lungs are filling." Outside, Canyon paced the clinic paddock, his whinnies growing increasingly desperate. When the flatline tones screamed through the speakers, the vet slammed the defibrillator pads down. Once, twice. Nothing. Then a thunderous crash. Canyon had broken through the fence. The Mustang charged into the clinic, skidding to a stop beside the table. As his warm breath fogged Thorn's cold muzzle, the heart monitor blipped. Then again, the wolf's tail twitched, and Dr. Nguyen, tough, pragmatic Dr. Nguyen, burst into tears. The sanctuary fell silent as Thorn's breathing grew shallow. Even the other wolves stopped their pacing, sensing what was coming. Canyon lay beside his friend, his neck curved around Thorn's frail body like a living shield. When the old wolf's whimper cut through the night, the Mustang responded with a sound no horse had ever made. A deep, resonating hum that vibrated through both their chests. Visitors swore they saw Thorn's ghost rise at the end. Not as an old, broken wolf, but as the proud alpha he'd once been. And when the first light touched Canyon's tear-streaked face, the staff found something astonishing. The Mustang's muzzle had gone completely gray overnight. Canyon refused to leave the recovery stall. He slept standing up, one hoof resting protectively on Thorn's foreline. When the wolf whimpered in pain, the Mustang would nicker softly, the same tone Thorn had used to calm him years before. Volunteers left the radio on at night after noticing Canyon's ears twitching to classical music. "That's Mozart's Requiem," whispered one intern. "Thorn's favorite." By the third week, miracles piled up, the day Thorn took his first step. The day he licked Canyon's nose again. And the evening Dr. Nguyen found them curled together, the wolf's tail thumping weakly at her approach. The sign outside their stall said it all. patient visitors only. No explanations needed. Physical therapy looked different for a three-legged wolf. Thorn collapsed after 2 steps, his remaining front leg shaking violently. But Canyon knew the drill. The Mustang knelt like a therapy horse, letting Thorn lean against his shoulder. Step, rest, step. When the wolf finally made it across the paddock, the sanctuary staff erupted in cheers. No one noticed the old ranch hand in back until he removed his hat. "Seen a lot in 60 years, Gus muttered, wiping his eyes. But never a Mustang teaching a wolf to walk. That night, Thorn limped to Canyon's hay pile and dropped a gift at his feet. The night cameras revealed the truth. While the sanctuary slept, Thorn would nose open Canyon's stall door and curl around the Mustang's legs. Thermal imaging showed something extraordinary. The wolf's body temperature rising precisely when Canyon's dropped, as if Thorn could regulate his friend's metabolism. But the real mystery, the way Canyon's heartbeat synchronized with Thorn's within minutes of contact. "It's called emotional contagion," Dr. Nguyen told reporters. "Except that's impossible between species." Yet there it was, proof that some connections bypass science entirely and go straight to the soul. The wild Mustang herd came at dawn, Canyon's original family, drawn by some ancient homing instinct. The lead mare called insistently, her nose pressed to the fence. Canyon trembled, torn between two worlds. Thorn watched from the shadows, his ears flat. Then, impossibly, the old wolf limped forward and nosed Canyon toward the herd. The Mustang took 3 steps, then turned back, pressing his forehead to Thorn's with a force that knocked them both over. When the herd finally left, Canyon stayed. And Thorn, the wolf who'd spent a lifetime alone, now had a son. The image spread faster than wildfire. Thorn and Canyon nose to nose under a Nevada sunset, their silhouettes merging into one. Strangers mailed get-well cards. Children sent crayon drawings. A Vietnam vet credited them with saving his marriage. But the real impact came quietly. Ranchers who'd once shot wolves on sight now called the sanctuary about problem predators. "Maybe we've been wrong," one admitted, watching Thorn gently correct an orphaned coyote pup. As for Canyon, the Mustang developed a new habit, nudging every visiting child toward Thorn's enclosure. Because some lessons can't be taught. They must be lived. And this wolf and horse? They were just getting started. School buses rolled into Mustang Monument every Friday now, filled with wide-eyed children clutching handmade "Welcome Thorn" and Canyon signs. A freckled boy named Tommy, who'd once been terrified of dogs, slowly extended a trembling hand toward Thorn's enclosure. The old wolf limped forward and gently licked his fingers through the fence. By summer's end, that same boy would stand before the state legislature holding a photo of him hugging Thorn, pleading for stronger wolf protections. "They're not monsters," he whispered into the microphone. "They're family." The arthritis had stolen Thorn's ability to run long ago. His muzzle had gone completely white. His breathing labored even at rest. Yet when a terrified Mustang foal was abandoned at the sanctuary gates, just as Canyon had been years before, the ancient wolf somehow found the strength to rise. Staff watched in awe as Thorn repeated history, nudging water toward the shivering newcomer with his nose. That night, Canyon stood guard over both of them, his own muzzle now flecked with gray. The cycle continued. The legend grew. They found Thorn at dawn beneath his favorite juniper tree, his body curled around Canyon's front hooves as if in sleep. The Mustang hadn't moved all night. His head hung low, his breath stirring his friend's fur one last time. As workers prepared to carry Thorn away, Canyon suddenly threw his head back and released a sound no horse should make. A perfect, haunting wolf howl that echoed across the valley. From the distant hills came answering cries from wild packs, a chorus of mourning that lasted until sunset. That evening, the staff noticed something strange. Every wolf in the sanctuary, even the newest pups, had gathered at the fence line facing west, waiting. The plaque at Thorn's memorial read simply, "Who taught us that love is the wildest instinct of all." Visitors left tokens, dog tags from veterans, baby shoes from grieving parents, even a sheriff's badge from the man who'd once hunted wolves. Canyon began appearing at dawn each morning to stand vigil beside it. his ears flicking toward the wind as if listening for something. Then one winter's day, a visitor's gasp drew everyone's attention. There, curled against the memorial stone, lay a newborn gray wolf pup with one blue eye and one amber, staring up at Canyon with eerie recognition. Dr. Nguyen's research paper made global headlines: Interspecies Altruism in Canis lupus, a case study defying evolutionary theory. Academics debated for years. Was it misplaced parental instinct? A neurological anomaly? Canyon answered in his own way. When a hurricane flooded the sanctuary, the aging Mustang was seen herding terrified wolf pups to high ground, his teeth gently gripping their scruffs just as Thorn once had for him. As the waters rose, he stood chest-deep protecting them until rescuers arrived. No scientific explanation needed. Canyon's gait slowed over the years, his once glossy coat turning white around the muzzle. Yet every evening at 5:03 p.m., precisely when Thorn used to wait for feeding time, the old Mustangs still ambled to their special spot by the northeast fence. Volunteers swore they sometimes saw him lower his head as if receiving an invisible nuzzle, his ears twitching at silent whispers. The new wolf pups, inexplicably, began gathering there too, lying quietly beside him until sunset. Some bonds, it seemed, even death couldn't sever. 87-year-old Margaret Hewitt returned one final time, her oxygen tank wheezing as she knelt beside Canyon. The Mustang, now nearly 30, ancient for his kind, rested his head in her lap like he'd done decades before when she was just a visitor and he was still a foal. When Margaret passed that night, sanctuary workers found something extraordinary. Fresh wolf prints circling her cabin, though no wolves had been loose that evening. And pressed into the dirt beneath her window, one perfect hoofprint beside them. The crayon-smeared note arrived in an envelope marked, "For Canyon. Dear Mr. Horse, my daddy hits my mommy. Yesterday I stood between them like Thorn did for you. It hurt, but mommy got away. I think Thorn would be proud. Love, Sophie, age 7. Canyon carried the crumpled paper around for weeks, gentle as with a foal. When Child Services confirmed Sophie's story months later, the sanctuary received another note, this time with a photo of her smiling beside an adopted shelter dog named Canyon. The new documentary crew was setting up microphones when it happened. Canyon, now completely blind, suddenly perked up his ears during a silent moment between takes. His clouded eyes focused on nothing as his entire body trembled. Then the audio equipment captured it. A faint but unmistakable wolf howl, though no wolves were present. The sound made Canyon young again. He pranced in joyful circles, kicking up dust until exhausted. That night, the sanctuary's motion cameras triggered at 3:17 a.m. The footage showed only Canyon sleeping, and a single paw print materializing briefly in the moonlight before vanishing. Today, Canyon's great-great-grandfoals roam Mustang Monument, their DNA ensuring Thorn's legacy lives on in their unusual behavior, playing with wolf pups, leading lost hikers to safety, even once herding a bear away from a toddler. The memorial stone now bears 2 names, the dates of their passing curiously aligned despite years apart. Visitors still report feeling watched from the juniper grove, and on quiet evenings when the wind blows just right, you might hear it, one final howl, one answering nicker, and the sound of running paws that never seem to stop. Because love like this doesn't end. It simply becomes legend. And legends, they live forever.